over what the deal breakers are and the most common mistakes made. Number one, for me, is location. A location can be one of the biggest deal breakers. Depending on where the location of the asset, one of the most important things if you're looking for an exit, that will determine if you'll be able to sell or trade that asset. Buying in the wrong location, you can lose the property value and not be able to make the return that you've been looking for. You may not be able to even sell it for what you want or be able to get into a loan program that you want permanently. Let me go ahead and give you an example. So let's go over an example of a bad 36 unit deal. So I had a client that did a 1031 exchange and he wanted to acquire more doors. So he went ahead and bought in Chicago, not knowing that it was a completely different market than Arizona. Arizona doesn't have rent control and we're a pretty landlord-friendly state instead of a tenant-friendly state. He went ahead and bought 36 units, so it was like 4 parcels with 9 units each. This is what they look like today. But he ended up selling it at a huge loss and actually losing the building. He bought it in 2020 and he thought it was a good time to buy because he was selling his units here in Arizona for, close to $300,000 a unit. And back in Chicago, he could buy the units for a lot less. And he thought he could actually make an incredible return. He bought his units for right around $80,000 a door. And he thought his exit sales price would be about $150,000. But unfortunately, with COVID, he couldn't complete the necessary construction. He only had 1 year to complete the financing, and he ended up losing the actual property. So location, guys, is going to make or break your deal. During COVID, the state actually said you don't have to pay your rent. And so he was losing income off the units that were actually having tenants there. And then he was also losing income off of the vacant units that he was trying to renovate because he couldn't get the materials in that location. So guys, location is super important. I wouldn't necessarily focus on how many doors you get for what money because that can actually lead you into losing your entire asset. Let's go over to why people do a 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange is a swap for one real estate investment property for another, allows capital gains taxes to be deferred. The term, which is named Section 1031, the Internal Revenue Code, RIC, is bandied by real estate agents, title companies, investors, and more. But if you lose the deadline identifying within 45-day period or close within 180 days, you could pay all the gain and all the recaptured in the other properties if you do not stay within the IRS rules. Also, you could be even in a worse position and not find a better property to exchange into. Or if you're paying so much more for something else. Let me give you another example. Let's just say you sell your property for $1 million and you want to buy a property that you found for 1.5. It was $300,000 overpriced, but you bought it anyway because you didn't want to pay the gain on the taxes. The gain on the taxes happened to be only $100,000. Was it really worth spending $200,000 more for another asset? This can be a common mistake. Another common mistake is buying the wrong unit mix. When looking at properties, some deal breakers depending on the location. If the unit mix is wrong, you'll never be able to change for much higher projections on rent, growth, and more permanent type of tenant. Let me give you an example. If you mostly have studios and one beds, it's harder to keep up for a single or a couple for more than a year. It is also harder for resale value as well. Master meter buildings can also be a deal breaker because the cost of all the utilities being ran off of one meter puts all the costs on the owner. And if you have a master chiller and it goes out, it could be a lot of tenants without heat, cooling, or electricity. Making sure you're not over leveraged on an asset or buying all cash and not being able to pull the money back out to generate more permanent type of financing are some of the most common mistakes actually seen. Not doing proper due diligence on leases, rent rolls, and proof of history on the property, and other liens and mechanics liens, laundry, or even solar leases that you may not know of them when you're closing on the property. These are the most common mistakes made when you're investing in apartments.